up, beautiful people? My name is Shanis, and you are tuning into the Art of Growing Together podcast. I want to start this episode just by saying thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Um, I'm not going to ramble too much, but I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been um, supporting and who has been just listening, and who has been sharing and who's been taking something from this, regardless if you're doing anything, as long as you're just here, I'm grateful for you. Um, so, yeah. This episode we're going to be talking about today is very personal. It's something that is very near and dear to my heart, and something that kind of like still affects me today. So, we're going to be talking about anxiety. I wanted this to be like a real honest conversation. I honestly wanted to do another idea for this week, but because of my anxiety, it was just like I had no inspiration. It was like I would have had to like force myself to do that idea, even though it's a great topic. I'm going to do it later. But I just know that if I want to be authentic, if I want to be real, if I want to continue expressing myself and using this platform to express myself, I have to have those, tough and honest and real moments with myself and with you guys. And, we're going to talk about some real stuff here. Now, we'll save the rest of that for later, but today we'll talk about anxiety. And we're not talking about the anxiety that everyone goes through, because everyone goes through anxiety at any point or moment in your life. You can feel anxious about something, whether it's like a job interview or, your presentation or whatever it is that's like normal that could cause anxiety. Trust me, it happens. We're not talking about that, okay? You're okay. We're talking about the more intense levels of anxiety, okay? And before we get into, how to live with anxiety, and like before I include my own examples, I want to start off by just explaining a little bit about it and what I know about it, because I do have a little bit of background in psychology. I do have my degree from Clark Atlanta University, so we're going to just be talking a little bit about it first. I'm not going to talk too much about it because we want to talk about how to live with it, and I want to give my examples. So, yes, first I want to say, like many other disorders or personality disorders or disorders that can affect our mind or our brain, a lot of those can come from stress. And there's this thing, I can't remember the exact term, but there's a peak that you reach when you are stressed. So if there's one thing that's happening in your life, and there's another thing that's happening in your life, and there's this and there's that and there's this and there's that, and you reach a peak in your life for the first time that you've never reached before, sometimes that level of stress can create a disorder. That disorder can be anxiety. That disorder can be dissociative identity disorder. That disorder can be personality disorder. That disorder can be obsessive compulsive disorder. Like anything can come from those not anything, but a lot of those disorders that I mentioned, and those that are similar to that, can come from high levels of stress. It's like a diameter or a stress meter or something like that. I'm not going to go into the technical terms, okay? I graduated in 2020. Um, but anyways, let's talk about it. Again, it's something that we all go through. So I'm pretty sure that you can remember a time in your childhood, or a time, when you were little or when you were younger, and there was something that could have caused you anxiety, whether that was, talking to, a girl or a boy that you liked, or, doing a presentation for the first time in front of class, or having to stand up and do a math problem on the board for the first time. Like, little things like that. We all remember moments like that that can cause anxiety, or that can, make us feel anxious. So I feel like we're going to start there. We're going to start with that feeling, because that's my baseline. You know what I mean? Like, for a lot of people that happens, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I need a second, which is okay and which is understandable. But for me, I feel like that is like my baseline of like, if I have a normal level of anxiety, I know I'm okay. I know I'm more than okay. You know what I mean? I know I'm doing great. I'm doing excellent. If I have a normal level of anxiety, oh yeah, you're popping off. You know what I mean? Like, that's like my baseline. It's like, yeah, you made it. The slate is clean, okay? Um, And so, yeah, so I feel like that's where we should start. But there's also a point in your life where you may not realize, but you kind of start to get overwhelmed. And then once you're in that state of being overwhelmed, you start to think about all the things that have gotten you here. You start to think about, oh, this happened yesterday, and then this happened last week, and then this happened the other day, and this happened last night. And remember, this was happening, this has been happening all month, and now this happened today. Like, again, it's with that stress, it's with that buildup, you know what I mean? And for a lot of people, it's like that's when they have those panic attacks or those anxiety attacks where it's like, I have nothing to do but to shut down. Like, my nervous system is shutting down, everything is grasping for straws right now because I have nothing left but to just breathe and like be in robot mode. And some people actually can feel affected by it, with getting like stomach aches and headaches and body aches and chills and things like that, depending on how serious those panic attacks are. But yes, it all comes from stress. It all comes from all those things. And so what happens is when your body is when your body gets to a level where it's knowing that like it's not going back to homeostasis, you know what I mean? Like, it's switched from we're having a normal level of anxiety to like our new normal level of anxiety is like we here. You know what I mean? Like, that's what living with anxiety looks like. It's like, I know I have anxiety or I know I have things that makes me anxious, but I'm also a little bit just in the back of my head anxious all the time. And then it's like, okay, well, now I'm doing things to make me more anxious, or more thoughts are coming in that's creating more anxiety. That's when you're like, that's when the panic attacks are at their build up. You know what I mean? Like, there's levels to it. But I feel like when it comes to living with anxiety, or dealing with anxiety, I guess it is understanding those levels. It's understanding the buildup. It's being able to take one or two off, from that buildup as you see it building up. You know what I mean? And I kind of mentioned this in one of my episodes about triggers, and about attaching yourself to certain triggers. And anxiety is one of those outcomes, because it's like you can get triggered by one thing, and now I'm being affected by this, I'm hurt by this, I'm sad by this for like 3 days. And in the midst of those 3 days, four other things are happening. And now at the end of that third day, I'm having my panic attack. So it's like understanding those triggers, understanding where the buildup is happening. I'm not going to go all the way into the triggers aspect because I just did that one. Go ahead and watch that episode. But I do want to talk about just understanding, like, dealing with it or living with it is having to like be aware constantly. And it's not easy, but building your awareness is a lot easier than you think, because you're aware all the time. You know what I mean? Like, there's things that you aren't aware of that you do all the time. And then once you start becoming aware of it, you're going to be aware of it all the time. So for me, like, it was breath work. I have anxiety. So breath work was one of the things that I started doing. And before I started doing breath work, it was like I really never understood or like paid attention to my breathing. And once I started doing breath work, outside of my triggers or outside of having my panic attacks, I'm actually working on breathing. It was a whole different thing. And now, before I'm entering into a stressful, situation, I'm focusing on my breath. I'm being mindful of my breath. Before I'm entering into a stressful, presentation, or while I'm like, walking up there or whatever I have to do, it's like I'm focusing on my breath and I'm calming myself down, because I have to, you know what I mean? Like, I have to take um, those levels away, so that way, once this is all over, if something else happens, that's probably going to be the last thing that gets me to the panic attack. Like, the thing is, it's not just one thing, or it's not just, the normal levels. It's like, I had this one thing that happened to me, and now I'm thinking about it, I'm sad about it, like I said, and it's just like, now I'm having these inside thoughts that are telling me about it, that's reminding me about it, that's trying to rationalize it, but that's also causing fear, that's causing doubt, that's causing, these negative self-talk. And then the next day something else happened. It's like, it's like a slippery slope, but like upwards. It's so crazy, but being aware of it is magical. And like I said, things like breath work, things like meditation, things like understanding your vices, or understanding what can comfort you, That's a big one. I want to do a video on that one, but just understanding what can comfort you in those moments, like those are the things that can help you, and that's how you learn to live with it, and that's how you learn to not let it control you, but so you can be in control of it, you know. And I feel like I can speak so much about this because I feel like I've been living with it for so long. I still have the scar on my hand from my first panic attack. I was in fourth grade, and it was one thing that happened. It was one thing that happened. I can't even tell you what it was because I obviously had the panic attack right after, and my memory is a little foggy. But I remember it had to do with like our homework or something for the night. And I had known that I didn't do the homework for that night. Not because I'm just like not that type of student. I'm always like on top of my game. But there was something going on in my household that night. There was other things that was happening like over the weekend because it was like I don't remember what was going on. Like I know it was a lot just because I know where I was in that time of my life, so I know it had to have been a lot going on. But whatever it is that was going on at that time, for that to happen in class, whatever she did or whatever it was, I'm pretty sure I got like called out about it, like not doing my homework, and I'm just like, you know, like, but nobody knew what was going on in my household, so I literally just had to sit there, and I just had a panic attack, and like the only thing that was like keeping me aware that I'm like still in class and I'm still like here was like gripping my pencil. So now I have a permanent pencil mark in my hand from fourth grade, my first panic attack. um, but like I said, all that stuff comes from stress. All that stuff comes from, you know, like the increase that stacking, that layering. You know, like I wasn't aware of it until it happened, and then once it happened, I still didn't know what it was. I'm just sitting here like hyperventilating, hyperventilating, but trying so hard to remain calm because remember, nobody knew what was going on behind closed doors in my household. And if I were to sit here and hyperventilate right now and like make matters worse, then I would have had to tell everyone what was going on. So for me, even though this is my first panic attack, I'm immediately in like, oh, I have to protect my family mode, and I have to make sure that no one thinks that there's something going on with me. So I didn't tell anyone that it happened. I didn't express to my teachers or to my parents or to his family or anyone. I literally just act like it never happened, and then I still have the scar to today. It's so funny because now I tell the story and it's like so funny. But then it's like, I mean, it's not funny, but it's so interesting to hear because to know that that level of stress happened for the first time when I was in fourth grade, one, it's insane, but two, it's understandable how I've come so far with my anxiety and how I've come so far to understand how to learn to live with it because I was in fourth grade, I was 8 years old. You know, I'm 25 now, so it's like I've been living with it for a long time, so I feel like I can speak on a lot of it even though I can still be affected by it today. Like I said it in all of my podcasts, like healing is not something that happens overnight, especially when things that are so close to us, especially things that are so triggering that can come from multiple experiences from our childhood. It's not easy to just overnight, no more anxiety. It's like I wish, you know, and I work on it day in and day out. And one day I'm going to get to a point and I'm going to realize, hey, I haven't had to work on my, my triggers, even though I would still keep doing it. I didn't have to, I was still doing it, but I didn't have to, you know what I mean? And I want to get to that point. And so that's why I keep doing what I'm doing. And I'll share that. Just give me a second. um, but yes, I just wanted to say, like, again, living with anxiety, it's not easy. It's something that can happen and that can affect you for a long, long, long time. And I don't know if, someday that's just going to change or if there's going to be a magical cure or whatever. But for me, I'm doing pretty good with like living with it and like managing it, So I'm going to just share that. I'm going to share what I do because, like I said, it's not fun and it's not easy, but it comes from that stress. So what I do is, what I did was I started to become aware of my panic attacks and not just like, I wasn't at that point in my spiritual journey where I knew where to look. So I would just start tallying my panic attacks. Like, how often am I having them? Am I having them like once a month, twice a month, whatever? And that didn't happen until college. So fast forward from fourth grade all the way up to high school graduation, I'll say I had like 3 panic attacks while in high school. Um, and I remember having my first panic attack again since fourth grade. And then I knew a little bit more about what had happened, but I still was very much unaware, because I was just kind of like unaware. Like I was just shaken. My body had really been affected by it because it was a really, really bad one at the time. I'm pretty sure it was like after I had lost my grandmother and a lot of stuff had happened, and it was probably like months later. So it was probably just, the grieving on top of other things that had started to stack on. And I think I had tried to like do my hair for the first time or do like a sew-in for the first time. And I'm like picking my fingers with a needle and I'm just getting frustrated. And I just sit there and I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm going to figure it out. And I just go into a panic attack. Like it was just like immediate. Like it was like I had no option but to just like, I sat there, I told myself, okay, I'm gonna try again and I'm gonna figure it out. But I just like sat there and I just started breathing and I just started breathing heavier and heavier and heavier. And then the panic attack just happened. And I'm on the floor, I'm like in my room, nobody's home. And like I'm in high school, probably like sophomore year or something like that. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna lay in bed. Like at that point, again, no knowledge. I didn't really know what was going on, but I did have the power of the internet the next day. So I did look it up and I did find out that that's what it was. And I just kind of claimed it, I guess. I just was like, well, I guess that's what's wrong with me. At least at least I figured it out. I wasn't in the mindset of like working through it. Of course, I'm in high school. I'm a sophomore, but I knew that's what it was at that time. So I probably had like 2 more panic attacks before I graduated high school, or in between, that panic attack and then going to college. And then once I'm in college, that's when I started to pay attention to how often I'm having these panic attacks. So that's step one. How often are you having these panic attacks? If you're having serious panic attacks where they're happening consistently or like once a week, once a month, you really need to seek help and seek a doctor. And I'm not saying this in any type of judgmental way. I'm saying this from like the professionalism in my heart who knows and who understand the diagnosis, because that is a very severe diagnosis of anxiety. Look at me stuttering. And I feel like you should seek help if that's you. If that's not you, keep going. We have these every once in a while. Let's roll. Okay, so college, I started to pay attention. When am I having these panic attacks? When is it happening? And for me, it was happening for, of course I'm in college. I'm already stressed about school. And then there's other stuff that's happening like with boys or with my friends and all this little, like it's little, but it's adding up on top of the stress. And then it would be like, oh, well, this is happening back home. And then I would be like, well, no, why nobody told me this is happening back home? This has been happening for like months and I've been here for months and nobody told me. And then it was like, now I'm thinking about things at home. I'm thinking about things in school. I'm thinking about all this other stuff. And then the panic attacks began to start in college. And so again, it probably happened a few times, but not super, super often. And it wasn't until like my senior year of college until I really started to figure out how to work through it. So, yeah, so my first step was just like, how often is it happening? Like, how am I being affected by it? But the only thing that I made sure that I was doing, because I felt like it was important, especially while I was in college learning about it, is to figure out ways to de-stress, how to reverse that energy. Like, even though I'm still here, I'm still up here with my stress or whatever. What do I do normally to de-stress? And like, not something that you would force yourself to do. At that time, I was not working out, I'm not going to work out to de-stress because that's abnormal for me. That's adding on more stress. You know what I mean? I need to go into like modes of like my childhood, like what was like comforting. I need my security blanket. And so that's something that I started doing in college and I continue to do today because it's so helpful, trust me. When you get to those moments of like my anxiety, I'm having these panic attacks or I'm about to have a panic attack or whatever, if you're at that level, you have to figure out how to de-stress. And for me, it's going to those childhood security blankets. I'm watching Hannah Montana, okay? Like, I'm watching Camp Rock. I am going into because like I said, that's when my anxiety started. So that's when I have those most comforting like memories, or like before anxiety, you know what I mean? So for me, that's what I need to go to. I need to go to the most inner child version of me and figure out what can comfort her right now. And sometimes that's some hot chocolate and I'm making brownies. Sometimes I'm drinking wine and I'm watching Harry Potter. It just depends. It depends. But you have to do what works for you. And no matter what the case is or however you got to that level of stress, always try and find at least one thing to do to de stress. That is so important because your body naturally tries to adjust itself after you had your panic attack, but helping it is so helpful mindfully, and like your body's going to thank you as well. Like you're going to feel a lot better a lot quicker, because anyone who knows, anyone who's had a panic attack, you know that that can affect you for days later. Days, and I mean days. And I can't tell you the last time that happened to me, because like I said, I do those like self-soothing techniques now. um but before, it would literally, like probably that one that I just mentioned in high school, I was probably not okay for like a week. And not saying like, just, I don't know, I feel like if you know what a panic attack feels like, you know it not only is shortness of breath, it's not only like disassociating from reality, but it's also like internally, I have no grip on my body control right now. It's like internally, your body is freaking out because it's just spasming. Like it's just like everything is like vibrating at this level and nobody told it to get there. But it just showed up. It just got there. But it also was approaching there for a long time. But anyways, once you're at that level, your body is really in shock, and that level of shock can affect people differently. Like I've heard people who can actually like not like spasm, but kind of like go into those seizure like, you know, spasms, to where now they're like frozen or they're stuck, and now they having all these like, you know, cramps, or like, you know, painful, you know, just aches in their body because they've been just holding themselves stuck while they had that panic attack. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different ways that you would need to just get back to being okay after that. So that's my best way of explaining it without like saying a list of things that I mean by how I meant I needed to be okay again, because it's a whole lot. And if you know, you know. Um, but like I said, doing those self-soothing techniques, guys, it's going to help. It's going to help. Even if you just had the panic attack, find something that's going to make you laugh literally 5 minutes later. It's going to help, okay? It's going to help. It's going to help, because you also have to think about the anxiety and the stress and the chemicals in your brain. You have to boost that serotonin. You have to boost it. Like it's at an all-time low right now, okay? Everything's gone. You just drained your whole tank. You're probably already headached and just tired and ready to go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like that's usually what happens after that panic attack. So just find one thing that's like, I'm gonna boost this, you know, before I continue on with my day, or before I try to, you know, do whatever. You know what I mean? Like just try. That's gonna help, okay? For those of you who've never tried that, trust me, just try and then come back and tell me how it did. Like, yeah. But anyways, let's get off of that, because I'm gonna keep talking about that. The next thing I want to say about anxiety is, well, let's go back because I kind of was rambling. But the first thing I was saying is just figuring out how often it's happening. But two, you need to figure out how to soothe yourself once you get to that peak. Once you get to those anxiety attacks and those panic attacks, what can I do to soothe myself? How can I self-soothe? And that's how you start to work on it. Don't start to overthink, because if you already have anxiety, overthinking is not going to help, okay? Don't start to figure it out in this part. Don't start, you know, trying to just think it through and just be like, okay, well, this happened because this, and this was this, and this was this, because you're going to be going in circles, and then you'll probably have another panic attack. We're not doing that, okay? What we're doing is we're just going to focus on how often it's happening naturally, and then we're going to start figuring out how to self-soothe. Once you're at that place where it's like, I know what to do when I have my panic attacks, I know. If anybody needs to know what to do, if they see me and they're here in my house and I'm having a panic attack, I'll give you the whole rundown. It's like I got so aware of it and I knew exactly what to do. And so I was able to like start the next step. And that was like, I want to say a year ago. I want to say a year ago, maybe 2021, but I want to say for real, 2022. That was the year when I not only like understood my triggers. I not only understood my anxiety. Well, not understood my triggers, but I understood my panic attacks, and I understood what to do, and I understood it, and I was just like so one with it. Once I was like at that level, I was like, okay, it's time to start figuring out how to not have these. Like now that I know so much about them, how can we figure out how to not have them? And that's why I'm saying that you can't figure that out, or you can't start thinking about that too early on, because you're just going to keep going in that cycle. You're going to be in that cycle of like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what's going on, and then it's going to be more panic attacks. But if you let yourself understand it naturally, and if you let yourself um, cope and like learn how to cope and learn how to heal when it happens, you're going to feel more at peace with it. So when it comes to thinking about it and figuring out or writing it down, it's like a different level of acceptance and understanding versus already being anxious and then trying to figure it out on top of already being anxious. It's just not going to work. So you just have to give yourself time. Again, this is all the process, okay? So after you're at that stage of, okay, I know what this is. Now we're at that stage of, how do we fix it? How do I not have as many panic attacks? And the best thing for that is, like my last video said, understanding your triggers. Okay, we all have things that trigger us, and that adds to that stress level. Okay, and also being aware of your stress level. You have to understand, or you have to like have like a safety word with yourself to know when you're starting to feel overwhelmed. Okay. And for me, it's like I need a lot of like alone time or personal time because I have ADHD and I have anxiety. It's like sometimes it's a lot going on up in here. And if I have to do a lot, if I'm running around a lot all day with a bunch of people and doing a bunch of stuff, I am going to need to sit down and not talk. No noise, no talking, okay? And I need that. And it's like, I've had a couple of friends who wouldn't understand that. So I would have like the whole day of doing a bunch of stuff and running around and talking to people. And then it's like, okay, now I need my me time. And I would express it, and I need a second, I'm just going to need a second. And then they would just be like, oh, well, we can have our second together. And for me, that was something, I don't know why I just said that so hilariously. But for me, that was one of the things that I had to start being aware of. Sorry, that was one of the things that I had to start being aware of, because that was creating panic attacks. It would be like, if I had a whole day of stuff and then I am looking forward to that self soothing that I'm telling you, because I'm here. And if I get here, I'm going to be up there. So I'm going to need to bring myself down. And I'm expressing, I'm going to need to bring myself down. It's understood, I'm thinking. But for me, and that one friend, whenever it would happen, and whenever I would already be up here, and whenever we'll be like, okay, well, let's just do it together. We're going to just stick together, and we're going to, boop, now I'm up here. Now here we are talking about our day, reflecting on what happened that I'm still overwhelmed about. Now I'm having a panic attack, and you're just going to sit here and just try to do your best to help me. And so I would have panic attacks like that, and I would just have panic attacks, from well, they wouldn't happen that often, but like I said, we all have our triggers. I had another one that was just like really like realistic, I guess, because it was so normal. It was like right after college. I'm trying to figure out what job I wanted. I was just COVID. I was just like ended, quote unquote, and my work from home job is like, okay, well now I need to find a new job, and I'm going door to door. I'm doing all this other stuff. I'm applying for these jobs. I'm going on interviews. I'm looking forward to these other jobs, and then I'm working this other job, and I'm doing so much stuff, and then I'm pretty sure it was like a bill or a check or one of the two, and it was like I didn't have it. And for me, of course, that airplane is going around. But for me, it was like I was already at that level of stress of doing so much to try and get there. And that once I got there and I knew that I still needed to do more, or that I didn't do enough, or that I still didn't have enough to pay for what I needed to pay for, it was like all I could do was just sit there and just like hyperventilate. Even though, you know, everything is going to work out eventually. But like for me, it's like I have to have those moments, or not have to, but like I've had those moments where it's like there's nothing to do but for me to like sit here and like accept. And so, and with accepting, it's not always easy. It's sometimes very sad, very depressing, especially when it's something as you know serious as not being able to afford your bills, and you're living on your own type stuff. It's like I need to figure out, what I'm going to do. I need to figure out, all this stuff, and then here I am still being disappointed. It's like I have to just accept what's going on. You know what I mean? So having those type of panic attacks was happening for me too, and so all of that was kind of leading me into understanding, again, more about my anxiety, more about how to stop it, more about how to take that moment, take that time to de-escalate before it gets all the way there. And I'm still there. I'm still there. I feel like I can only talk about as much as I've experienced, but I'm definitely still in that stage where I am so aware of a lot of my triggers, not all of my triggers, but a lot of my triggers. And I'm so aware of my de escalation processes. So if I need to sit under my covers and lay there with the lights off and watch Harry Potter or watch SpongeBob or watch Zoe 101 or watch whatever I need to watch that's going to be so comforting to my inner child. If I need to eat a box of cereal, if I need to bake some cookies, if I need to just order some candy or some random stuff because ordering things are fun, that's if I need to soothe in any way, I'm going to soothe because that's how you de-escalate and that's how you save yourself in the future from not having a worse panic attack. So, and again, we all have those levels, we all have those triggers. Definitely go to that last video if you want to look more into the triggers, because I talk a lot more about it and a lot more about how to become aware of it, the process of it, things like that. But when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to dealing with anxiety or living with anxiety, it is so important to just understand that everything is going to be okay. It's so important to understand that your anxiety is not telling you the truth. You know what I mean? It's sometimes it's saying facts, but all the time it's exaggerating. All the time it's telling you that this is a earth-shattering matter and that you should be feeling devastated. You know what I mean? So to be able to accept that is not always acceptable. You know what I mean? Of course, that when there's serious situations that causes you anxiety or that brings about anxiety, it's okay. And there's you can probably just de-escalate, by just doing one or two things. You know what I mean? But if you're one of those people who it's like, I don't even know what's going on here. I don't even know how I got to have this anxiety attack. It's like you have to start understanding the things that are getting you to layer those stressors on. What was the first stressor? We'll layer it on top of that because there's steps. There's steps to get to this point of you reaching, that hierarchy. But again, thinking about it, trying to figure it out, trying to just fix it, trying to just, justify it, trying to whatever, add more thoughts into the barrel is not what you need to do first. What you need to do first is just start being aware. Start listening to yourself more. Start being more aware of how you're feeling when you're not anxious versus when you are anxious, and start being aware of the things that make you feel better, even if you're not anxious. If you're having a sad day, or if you was let down, today, what are you going to run to? And obviously we're talking about healthy things. We're not talking about, overindulging in certain things that you probably shouldn't be doing, you know what I mean? But like being able to do one or two things real quick, that's like, this is what I need right now. That's what you should start focusing on, you know what I mean? And then once you get to that point, it's like, now I can start figuring it out because I can see all the pieces. You can't figure things out until you see everything. It's like trying to play a game that you don't even know, like chess. Have you ever just tried to play chess and you have no idea what this is other than it's called chess? You're gonna look stupid. There's nothing that you can do that's gonna make sense. Probably one or two things, But if you don't know what the chessboard pieces names are, if you don't know the moves, if you don't know the concept of the game or how to win, you're just sitting here looking foolish and just adding more stress by moving pieces and by trying to do other stuff. What you need to be doing is just taking a step back and seeing everything for what it is. See your anxiety for what it is. See yourself for who you are and understand that it's separate from who you are. You're not an anxious person. You have anxiety. How do I learn how to control my anxiety? How do I learn how to live with my anxiety? Because it's something that I deal with. It is not me. So once you are aware of the differences and aware of the effects and everything like that, and it starts to the pieces start to come together, that's when you start to figure it out. That's when you start to seek help or start looking for outside sources, and start writing things down more. Like that's when you start doing things in a healthier way, because you can see things for what it is. And now I'm taking notes, and now everything is coming together. So now let's just put it all together and figure out what can we do to help myself when it comes to my anxiety. So yeah. I feel like that was a lot. That was a lot, a lot, a lot. Very, very wordy. And I definitely rambled a lot. And I hope it's still a good episode. Again, guys, I think this is the best that I can do when it comes to anxiety, because I still struggle with it today. And I still, praise myself for doing the best that I can. And like, understanding that it is a part of me. It's not me. It's something that I've been affected by for a long time, but hopefully it won't be forever, as long as I keep healing it. And as long as I keep healing parts of myself that are tied to it, we're all going to be okay. And you have a place to start. You have things that you need to be healing. So I'm glad that you're here to start and just listen. You know what I mean? Whether you're applying it today or not, I hope that it's something that sticks in your head for a long time, to where that day comes, you know what to do, or you know where to go to start getting those answers, because we're going to be here for a while. All right? So stick around a while. Watch some more episodes. As always, I'm grateful for you and I love you, and I'm so grateful that you're here. So, so grateful. Watch some more episodes. Like, comment, and subscribe, and share. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye.